Hi everyone, delonewolf here. Welcome back to EVE Talk, your weekly look at the market in EVE Online. And it's pretty interesting that CCP is going to launch Operation Frostline for this winter. We'll see what kind of activity we'll find there. It should be in line, but much bigger in scope than the Crimson Harvest and the new coalition of a few corporations, NPC corporations in the game that are set to be the ones that will release the new citadels should be involved as well. So what I'm hoping is that there's something for industrialists as well, that they can maybe help those guys out in some way. That would be pretty cool. But yeah, Operation Frostline throughout December, coming with the December release, that's on December 8th, is something that I'm hoping will be quite successful and fun to do. Of course, we are here for the market, so we will jump right in with plex as always at around 1 minute. Let's write that down and then let's take a look here at plex, which are going up 1234, 1235, so 1.2 billion and going up. So here we can clearly see that we are breaking out at the moment. This is the 1 year chart. You can see that we started here at like 0.95 billion. We went down to 0.8 for quite a while, but now we've clearly gone up. That stall right here, that pullback is from the Crimson Harvest sale, but now we are, I think, on our way back up in line with the increase in price that started in April, something like that. So let's go for the 6-month chart, look at a little bit of detail. What we can see is that the 5-day moving average crossed the 20-day moving average, crossed 1.2 billion, and it's on its way back up towards 1.25 now. The one thing is we have seen two tops at 1.25, but I think this is my personal opinion and my personal analysis of the situation. Unless CCP comes out with another plex sale during the holidays, so during Operation Frostline, I think that plexes are going to start to go up gradually, and part of the upwards pressure here, I do think, is the new expansion. So it's a little bit delayed, but usually you would see a move like this, an increase in price after the summer, then a big run up towards the expansion, and after that you would see a slower pullback that would see a bottom. That is something that years ago was a pattern that showed up on every winter expansion. The Citadel is going to be a major expansion. We've not had one in a long time, so I think there is a good chance that that pattern will re-emerge. And so at the moment it would mean that plex would need to slowly start to increase, but then come January, as we get closer and closer to release and CCP actually announces more and more stuff, we should see a further increase in price, and only at the expansion we will actually see a top. That's my personal expectation. Of course, I could be completely wrong. Always keep that in mind. I'm not telling you to buy or to sell or to do anything. I'm just giving you guys my opinion at this point. Let's take a look at the multiple pilot training certificate here, also going up 1.2 billion. Data points again hitting that 1.25 billion, where we also see that double top. One thing I should maybe take a look at is supply and demand here. Let's see how many new plexes are coming in. It's still quite a lot. Over here we got 10, 10, 10, 10. Someone is really trying, but they're just 0.1ing each other. And I think that demand is actually outstripping the supply at the moment, because the price is going up. It's always very difficult to actually tell that from supply demand from sellers and buyers, because it's such a huge market that it's pretty difficult to sell. But it's pretty obvious on the chart that the price is going up at the moment, and I think the only thing that can stop that would be a CCP intervention or another plex sale. Let's take a look at the pilot body resculpt, which is also going back up a little bit, recrossing the 20-day moving average as well. Data point at 280 million, but we can see some sellers coming in that are trying to keep, or that will probably keep price close to 280 million. So I think if by next week plex are continuing on this upward course here that was only delayed basically by the intervention here, by the plex sale, and the body the resculpt one stays below 280 million, I think it's a strong possibility. Then we will again see that disconnect between plexes and the body resculpt certificate, which really tends to do its own thing at the moment. or I should say could start doing its own thing again, because for the last few weeks it really did retrace plexus with like dropping back down with the sale, then crossing 20-day moving average. But yeah, we're definitely not seeing the very strong correlation between Plex and the pilot pilot training certificate in the resculpt certificate. So that's going to be interesting, I think, to see if that one can stay below 280 while Plex continues to go up, maybe towards 1.3 billion or something like that. The percentage increase of Plex 2.36 in 1 week, it's not too bad. Keep that in mind as well. It's definitely not an insignificant increase. Next up, let's take a look at some minerals. That would be 545. And I think that this is looking pretty good for me personally, because here is titanium clearly going up, breaking through the 6.2 barrier, now looking close to 6.4, 645 for the sellers, 630 for the buyers. That's not bad, honestly. I've seen titanium as high as 7 ISK, so this is not like completely out of bounds or all-time high or anything like that, but above 6.5 titanium starts to become pretty damn expensive. We're also seeing a 1.1 billion units being dropped here, and another 1.4 billion units as well at 648. Let's see what the demand is like. 900 million, 200 million, 700 million right here. These are older though, 1 billion, 1.5 billion. I would not be surprised if 6.5 could become a top, because last week we still had a clear higher demand than supply, but now with these big orders starting to come in, people are tempted to start to dump their stocks. For me personally, I would like to see it above 6.5 before I really start dumping my stocks. Is that in the cards? That's a bit of a gamble because of those two big orders here of almost 2.5 billion. It is possible that that won't work out and that we will stay below 6.5. But if we're above 6.5, then the titanium I bought will make a very healthy profit. And yeah, as I've said, we've seen titanium as high as 7 ISK, and the citadels are coming. There's a lot of new stuff to be built as well. It is possible, I think, but it's definitely a gamble. Supply demand wise, this looks much more balanced, and it's looking like possibly 6.5 could be an upper limit. So keep that in mind, and I'll have to decide what to do myself. If I want to take some profits at this point, or if I want to wait it out, see if closer to the expansion pressure can actually increase the price of titanium even higher. Next up here we've got pyrite. Let's take a look at what that one's been doing. Bounced up to 11.5, but it's already coming back down, trying to meet at probably 11.4 with the 20-day moving average. So 11.46 for the sellers, 11.15 for the buyers. Here we've got 100 million, 84 million, another 300 million, but that's a few days ago. On the buyers we've got 400 million, 50 million, another 93 is the latest order. So I would give a slight edge to demand for pyrite, so this correction could bounce back up to 11.5, but again it is also slowly starting to look like we're reaching a top for pyrite as well. Yeah, disregarding the sharp increase to 11.7, but it's looking like it's starting to find its price band at the moment. So yeah, let's take a look at Mixtalon. That could be a strong indication as well. Slowly starting to slow down its descent towards 60 ISK here. So 61, 62 for the sellers, 60, 58 for the buyers. Supply wise, 18 million, 38 million, 6 million. Here we get another 42 million coming in less than a day ago. You've got 70 million though, 40 million, 20 million here. Pretty balanced. So just above 60 ISK, I think that Mixtalon is finding its price as well. If like me, you've been able to buy at a lower price, then that's looking quite okay. But I think I bought below 60, so I won't have made that much of a profit. But it's looking like really the high-ISK minerals are starting to find their price. Next up here we've got Isogen. As you can see, tried to go up, tried to break 115, managed to do that, but it's already starting to come back down. So sellers 116, buyers 112, 112 ISK. So somewhere in between that, you're seeing 10 million units coming in here, another 9.5 million units. On the buyer side, you've got 10 million units here, 9 million units here. It's not like supply is completely overtaking the demand all of a sudden, but it's looking much more balanced than last week and a few weeks ago. So I would say High-sec minerals, they could be set for finally finding their price, and then titanium could end up being the real winner, going as high as 640 right now. If the others start to get under pressure, we could really be seeing the top already, staying below 6.50. But if we have some more momentum behind us with demand for like the new citadels, then it could be that we'll go a little bit higher across the board. But we're slowly, obviously, finding some balance once again in the high-sec minerals. Let's take a look at some Noxium here. Finally breaking back out a little bit. Bottom was 470. We're currently looking at 502. It's been a while since we've been above 500, I think, for the sellers in Noxium, and 485 for the buyers. Still 2.5 million, 2 million units coming here, another 5.7 million. Someone is buying though, another 5 million here. So very difficult for Noxium to actually break out in any sustainable fashion. You can see that this run up above 500 is being squashed by supply pretty heavily. So I expect that we could be moving back down just a little bit because of that pressure, but it would be good, I think, for the Noxium market to start to move around 500 ISK from now on. I think it's a strong possibility, but what I'm personally seeing is that we could be at the end of any major run-ups at the moment in the high-sec related minerals. Let's take a look at some Zydrine here. Pressure is obviously still on, again touching the 1000 ISK mark. Let's see if the buyers have gone below. No, 1004 for the buyers, 1067 for the sellers. So supply wise here, 2.4 million, 2 million, 1.6 million here though, 2.5 million, 2.6 million, 1 million right here. Yeah, it's all starting to come together. Supply demand is starting to finally find each other, and for Zydrine, just above 1000 ISK seems to be the price range that they want to start to actively trade a bit more. Next up here we've got Megasite. Here the pressure is on though, clearly breaking 1300 on the chart. Let's take a look at that. 1208 for the buyers, and 1299.8 for the sellers. So even the sellers have been forced below 1300. The buyers are quite optimistic, trying to get a price closer to 1200 and 1300, and breaking 1300 I think is a pretty major deal. The fact that we still see 1.8 million units coming in here, I think the pressure for Megasite is on, and I would not be surprised if we would actually move as low as 1200 for the buyers, and then like 1250, 1260 for the sellers, something like that. But we could see a price band of actually 1200 to 1300 for Megasite. I think it's a possibility, showing that the move up to 2300 was quite optimistic, and that the oversupply from Nelsec is pretty major at the moment, because despite the really big retracing, we are still seeing oversupply a little bit. We started at 800, so from 800 to 1200, that's only like a 50% increase in price after the mineral changes. So pretty interesting that pullback is still happening, that the pressure is still on here, and people that went as high as above 2000 for Megasite and actually bought at this price point, well, they've made a pretty bad deal. Patience here would have been quite a virtue. And then finally, I'll quickly touch on Morphite. 11200 for the sellers, almost 1100 for the buyers. And pressure, just a little bit of pressure, but trying to stay above 11,000 on the chart. This is definitely not as drastic as what we've seen in the movements for, let's say, Titanium, for instance, or Megasite on the big correction happened right here. So Morphite, Tech 2 related, much more stable in the mineral market. But the other ones, pretty interesting. All of them I think are stabilizing at the moment, but Megasite still needs to do a little bit of correcting in my book, and Titanium is actually, I think, going to be my canary in the coal mine. If that one stops increasing and cannot break above 650 by next week, I think all of them are in their price range pretty much. And of course, for my own stocks, I do have some choices to make at this point. Next up, let's take a look at the impact on some Tech 1 chips. 1430. I'll go over these pretty quickly. I actually don't think that there should be anything too dramatic. Armageddon still having some problems filling the gap here, although 38 and 17 of them coming in, and you're able to sell them at 208 million. Not bad. But yeah, battleships seem to be going above 200 million across the board, and so I would say the Armageddon, also a really good ship, the Armageddon with missiles and awesome drone damage. It's definitely my favorite battleship to take in any PvP situation. It's the one that I used very successfully in a C1 wormhole. Just a combination of missile damage and drone damage is incredibly potent, so I would not be surprised to call this one of the most effective Tech 1 battleships, especially for like solo players and small gang stuff. And so this could be why it's a little bit more popular at the moment, and why the supply gap just cannot fill the needed supply at the moment. Next up here we've got the Caracal, moving back down below 12 million, even data points as close to 11.5 million. So sellers 11,700, buyers 11,400, 401. Well, that's not a big deal, but yeah, moving back close to an average of closer to 11.5 million, which is pretty normal for a Caracal. So this is okay for a cruiser, a little bit more expensive than like a year ago because of the mineral changes, but slowly, finally, we are stabilizing. We're seeing decent supply coming in here, 134, 88 Caracals, and this is all stabilizing quite nicely. Next up here we've got the Dominics, big run up to 210, but that seems to have been a bit overly optimistic. You can see that the correction has started, and we're currently looking at sellers of 207, but still 51 of them coming in here, and then buyers at 200, trying to keep battleships above 200 million, but not buy too much. I think it's actually an okay situation. Next up here we've got the Drake, going up towards 55 million after a pretty serious correction, breaking the 54 million, even data points close to 53 million. But is the pressure on at this point? Yeah, you still have 71 of them coming in here, so even above 55 million is probably a pretty good price for a Drake. Buyers are at 52.5 million, so I would not be surprised if pressure would come back on here pretty soon, and that we will normalize in a 53-54 million price range for a Drake once everything really starts to settle down, and maybe people come back to the game a bit for the winter, produce some more stuff, and try to make some profit on some Tech 1 ships. Then stuff like the Armageddon and the Drake here, probably not that bad of a choice. Next up here we've got the Mauler, which has completely restabilized towards 11 million here after that huge price spike where basically the Mauler market had been bought out. It's back, as you can see. There's decent supply now, although not that much new, coming in at 11.8 million. You've got a few of them, but the price is obviously normalized. I think the fact that we see the chart this close to 11 million means that people that are buying them below 11 million on the buyers are actually getting filled from time to time as well. Yeah, this one big price spike in the Mauler happened. It's something that happened across the Tech 1 markets like more than a month ago. But there was basically a major buyout of almost everything, and this is in a more well supplied market, which is easier to do for smaller ships. You can see that the stabilization is much faster. In bigger ships it's a bit harder to do. So here, for instance, you've got the Myrmidon, some instability right here, starting at 54 million, ending at 56, 57 million. It's a bit of an increase in price, but are we seeing decent supply coming in? Yes, we are. 10, 14, here we've got another 33, and the first half of this front page, which would be close to 70 Myrmidons, maybe even a bit more than that, is actually less than 24 hours old. So the Myrmidon, you get a pretty good price for that. We're slowly stabilizing, but for the bigger ships, we're stabilizing a little bit higher. And here, for instance, Myrmidon battlecruiser, I think it's a pretty good battlecruiser overall, settling above 56 million, or maybe at an average of 56 million. Seems to be in the cards for that one. Next up, we've got the Oracle, 84 million, after the big correction here, down to 82 million. A little bit of a pullback is normal, but you can see that we stabilize pretty quickly. And so sellers, there's still some coming in trying to sell just above 84 million. The buyers are at 82. So this is looking quite okay for the Oracle to start moving sideways, to finally show that stability that I like to see in the Tech 1 markets. Next up here we've got the Raven. This may look like a major run up in price, but again we see that it's stabilizing in the last month or so around the 200 million mark, just below that in fact, and so that's normal for a battleship. So 200 million for the sellers, 195 for the buyers, and we're just moving in between that price range, so that's quite okay I think for a Tech 1 battleship. Of course, if I take a look at the 1 year chart, you can clearly see that we've increased in price significantly, but keep in mind that Raven's coming from 165 million. That is pretty damn low for a battleship, and so I think all the battleships are trying to come into that 200 million price range, and that the changes to minerals have basically made that happen over the course of like the last few months or so. Next up here we've got the Stabber, again that big price spike which was like a move on the Tech 1 market by a major party, now stabilizing at 11.5 million, a little bit higher than the 10.5 we had like 3-4 months ago, but pretty stable now after we've gone past that spike here. So is the pressure on? Not that much, so it does look like Stabbers will stay in the 10.5 to 11.5 price range for now, maybe even 11 to 12 million price range is possible, but it is finally showing that stability once again. And keep in mind that at one point here we've also seen the mineral or maybe like right here, the volatility here at the very start of the chart. We did see the mineral rebalance, and overall it should be a little bit more expensive across the board, because there is a higher need for Zytrine and Megasite in pretty much all the goods and ships in EVE Online with this rebalance. And so the fact that the Stabber just stayed that stable is actually a little bit out of line with what you should have expected. And so over the course of 6 months, going from 11 million to 11.5 million is in line with the mineral rebalance and does show the actual stability of the Stabber market. Next up here, the Tornado, again pretty decent. We have the big run up to 80, coming back down to 74, and now starting to move in a 74 to 76 million price band. Not too bad. The market looks pretty healthy. In fact, this entire front page is less than 24 hours old. People trying to sell at 76 million, I think, are doing pretty good on a fully researched PPO. Next up here we get Typhoon, again very similar to the Raven, looks like a major run up, but it's actually from 174 to 195 million, something like that. We're even going back down as low as 188 million. So not that many Typhoons on the market, trying to sell them for 193. It's actually looking like it's the buyers that are currently just being supplied by direct buying to them, causing this drop off in the price of the Typhoon, despite the fact that there's not that many on the market. Across the board, the battleships have closed their gaps in between the different individual battleships, but we're back on towards, I think, a more stable Tech 1 market. Finally here, the Vexor. 11.5 to start off with, 12 million to end up with a little bit of volatility like all the cruisers apparently right here early October, but that seems to have been digested by now, and that 500,000 extra where we're settling at the moment is not, I think, the end of the world. 11.1 for the buyers, 11.9 for the sellers, and in between that is where we seem to be moving, just below 12 million for a Vexor. Next up, some Tech 2 stuff. Let's see if we can actually 23.35. Let's see if we can actually find some trade potential. But as I've said, it seems to me like at the moment the Tech 2 market is a little bit too stable. There are no major moves to be spotted that often. So you can see that the Basilisk has had them in the last 6 months, starting at 175 up to 215. Then we've got a run up to 230 with a bottom at 175, another run up to 250. And you can imagine that you can make some really good trade money on wild swings like that. But you can see that both the bottoms and the tops have clearly gone down, and that we're now moving around that 190 price band. And so the Basilisk, just too stable at the moment. I don't like how the Tech 2 market is just basically slowing down its volatility at the moment. You've got a big run up in volume right here on the Cerberus, causing a price spike, but we're talking a bottom of 180 with the first run up to 190, so that's just 10 million. That's definitely not enough. Then we have a bit of a run up close to 210 million, but it basically started at 190, which is like 20 million, just 10%, just a worthy trade. Look at how short-lived it was though. We're already going back down, and now we've got buyers at 178, sellers at 183, which is, well, not that good in my book. I mean, for maybe a long-term gamble, buying below 180 for Cerberus is not that bad, but I would say don't expect to be able to sell them for 15-20% profits anytime soon. It's just not happening in the Tech 2 market at the moment. Here comes the Guardian finally, potentially proving me wrong a little bit. Double bottom at 130, and finally a run up here. Currently, yeah, they've been bought out, selling for 153. So 154 even. Let's say that you bottom below 130 million. We're currently looking at 24 profits. That's not bad, right? That's almost 20%. That's definitely 15%. That's pretty good. Finally, the Guardian showing, thank God for the Guardian here, showing some nice volatility in the Tech 2 market. So the Guardian, if you invested in them at 130, this is probably your time to sell, make that 15 to 20% profit. I think you'll be able to do that if you make a move pretty quickly. Okay, good. Show me that volatility. Next up here we've got the Hound. That's again too flat, and again if you would draw a line for all of those bottoms, we're basically normalizing towards 80 million, and then try to draw a line for all of the tops here, at least the last few ones, then we're basically normalizing towards 18 million as well. So right in smack in the middle of that, I don't like the Hound at the moment, and I don't like this decrease in volatility. Next up here we get the Ishtar. Bottom here also normalizing, tops are also normalizing, 160 million, which is an okay price, but again way too stable, so I would not make my move on any of this. Manticore, just except for that one big spike here, you've got a way too stable a market, even slowly going back up from 20 million. Don't like it. Nemesis, this potentially, I mean, it's a double bottom. This is a decent run up from like 17.6 to maybe 19.2, something like that. That's not bad. 2 million increase almost, a little bit more than 10%. Now we're back at a very low bottom. Where are the buyers at? 17 million. If that final buy order here gets out, you can pick up Nemesis below 17 million. I don't think that that's bad, but again, I don't expect the volatility to be very soon. So Nemesis, I would be okay with making a move on that, on some buy orders below 17 million, try and pick some up very cheaply, and then try and find a good opportunity later on. I think it's okay, but don't expect that to be a short-term trade, I think. Next up here, we've got the Oneros. Again, logistics cruisers showing that volatility, pretty damn good here. 145 million is where we could have bought them. I think 195 million, so 50 million increase in price. That's good. Logistics cruisers are the winners for this week if you have them, if you bought these Oneroses. I'm not sure if I've ever told you to buy them after that price spike. It is possible, I think, on the buy orders that I said that this looks somewhat okay. Yeah, if you have them, this is the time to sell Oneroses. You can definitely make some nice profits on that one. Whew, thank God for logistics cruisers. They are showing the volatility that we need in the Tech 2 market to actually make some nice trade money. Here's the Purifier. Again, one spike, way too stable. Nope, we don't like that. And here's the Scimitar. That's pretty good as well. A bottom of 130, a top of 160. That's around 20%. Not bad. Unfortunately, that opportunity is already over. I think last week I said that it looked like that one's doing a good run up. And it really did. The only unfortunate thing is, like, if you look at the Scimitar, where at the Oneros, this is like a 1 week move or just a few days, and same with the Guardian. This is something that very sudden. Someone came in, bought basically all of the Guardians that were available, and then caused that big price spike, and this is where you really can make, if you have a close eye on these, then that's where you make a lot of money all of a sudden, because they are being bought out. But for the scimitar, this was over the course of several weeks, so this is a little bit slower, and as you can see, the response is pretty much immediate. The drop-off is already set in. You're basically too late to really sell the scimitars for huge profit at the moment. And then finally here a look at the vengeance, but again you can see that this is just right in the middle of the chart where everything is settling. So Tech2 market not looking too good, except for the logistics cruisers this week. All of them really big increase in price. Could there be a war brewing in 0.0? There is some interesting Reddit shenanigans that I've seen over the course of the last week or so. So yeah, we'll keep an eye on that. The potential of a nullsec war would be absolutely amazing. It's something that EVE Online, I think, could really use. That's a major nullsec war over the course of the winter. And me for producing some stuff and trying to create my own little market could be something I need as well. So let's cross our fingers. Let's hope that nullsec decides to go to war in a major way. That would be awesome. Next up, Tech3 markets, 30-35 for that. 30-35. All right, let's take a look here at the Confessor with a run up to 65 million, but it looks like it's dropping off. Last week, I don't think we had a lot of Confessors. No, but look at that. Yep. We have like 7 orders that are more than a day old, and then everything else is less than a day old. So the gap has been plugged, the pressure is on for the Confessor. Will probably correct back at least a little bit. As I've said, the Confessor was probably like the best chip to make and to bring to the market in the last week or so, because that sustained increase in price here. Next up here we've got the Hecate going up to 60 million. Let's see, there's decent supply though, so 57 million for the sellers, 56 for the buyers, something like that. It's pretty obvious that since the release, these destroyers have greatly increased in price. I think they're used quite a lot, and that there's absolutely demand for them. And it's great for the Tech3 producers, because they can finally produce proactively, supply the market with what it wants and needs, and actually make a nice profit off of this. Next up here we've got the Jackdaw, also clearly going up in price, although also normalizing. So I would say, well, there is decent supply here. These 149 and 170 orders are pretty major and are going to stall the market for a bit, but I'm not seeing huge supply coming in. Of course, they're only selling for 54 million, so keep an eye out for the Jackdaw, possibly after going through this big supply here. The Jackdaw could actually be set to be the one that goes up next in the destroyer line. And then finally the Zwepel for the destroyers, pretty similar to the Confessor, run up to 65 million, and now the pressure is on. So yeah, look at that, less than a day old, quite a few Zwepels coming in here with pretty decent numbers over here. Again, another 48 coming in like 1.5 hours ago. So for the Zwepel and the Confessor, production has spotted the opportunity and is filling that gap. Pressure is on. If I would say the next in line could be the Jackdaw for an increase in price, because we're not seeing that much new supply and it is the lowest in price at the moment. Do you want to buy a couple and risk trades? Honestly, if I look at the ticker here, and we've got the Tengu moving up 11% in 1 week, that is starting to come into interesting trade territory as well. So this is just for your information, but the Tech3 market has seen some much wilder swings in the last few months than the Tech2 market, I would have to say. Of course, what we saw in the logistics cruisers this week is absolutely mind-boggling, because they're so expensive, and percentage of 15 and 20% are absolutely huge, but that's pretty damn rare. And yeah, the Tech3 market has shown much more volatility, although sometimes, of course, much lower percentages as well. But do you want to start trading in this? Potentially, I think there could be some money in it as well. It's a bit more risky, I think, though. Next up here, we've got the Legion. Yeah, here is the example. Run up to 220, bottom at 160, and now we're again running up to 222. Supply is here though, but yeah, if you manage to pick them up on buy orders close at this price point, then at the moment you're looking pretty golden with selling some Legions. So we'll have to, I think I'll have to start analyzing that market from that perspective. Of course, now we've got pretty big supply. 220 million for the Legion is a pretty damn good price, and so I think you have to be a little bit careful at the moment. Next up here, we'll take a look at the Loki, much more stable at 170. What supply looking like? Slowly drying up. You can see there's not that much new coming in here. So if you can pick him up at 170, is that potentially a good idea or not? It's always a bit of a gamble, of course, but compare the Legion to the Loki, it's pretty obvious that people are going to produce and try to sell Legions at the moment. So does that mean it's an opportunity here? Maybe. Here's the Proteus, also doing a bit of a run-up after a bottom at 170. Loki buying for 170 potentially. 213 for a Proteus. It's still below the Legion, but it's definitely not bad. And then finally here we've got the Tengu selling for 200 million, also a bit of a run up, but as you can see here the percentage movements have been much more restricted here for the Tengu, moving between 200 million and maybe 175, something like that. Although a bottom here at 140, that would have been good to buy Tengus. So it is looking to me like supply is not completely outstripping demand anymore because of the destroyers, because you need to produce those as well, and they are extremely popular at the moment, I think, these Tick 3 destroyers. And so that's having an impact on everything and bring some volatility back to the Tick 3 market. And if I would be a gambling man, I would look at the Loki for an investment, and I would have some ISK, I would say. I would look at the Loki and I would look at the Jackdaw at the moment. There could be some potential in there. And then finally for the extra products, 36 minutes. Someone requested some PI. Now PI is like really a huge market, manufacturing materials, planetary materials. There's so many sub categories, so many different things that you cannot. I mean, PI would be pretty much a different Eve talk all on its own. I think you could fill 20-25 minutes just on PI. But what I will do is I'll take a look at just the advanced planetary materials. Why? Because these have been announced to be needed in the construction of the citadels, and in a pretty major way actually. I've been doing some stockpiling, some preparations in the mineral side of citadels, and it's just not that much. So on a cost of 7 billion for a large citadel in materials, just for the hull, of course. The minerals, it's a decent chunk, of course, but it's nowhere close to like 90% or anything like that. So broadcast nodes, let's take a look at that here. You can see the impact of the Citadel dev block announcement going up from 130, where it was clearly on a downtrend, and now up to 1.5 million with data points as high as 1.6. So they're selling for 1.7, buying for 1.5. And yeah, these advanced planetary materials are all needed in the construction of citadels, and this is why we'll have seen a major run up in them. And other stuff like the fuels, which is a bit surprising to me, have stayed much more stable. Here is the integrity response drone, starting at 1.46 months ago, now at 1.7. I think this spike here from 1.5 to almost 1.8 will have been the integrity response drone. Will have been the run-up on the dev block announcement. Yeah, unfortunately for us, of course, integrity response drone was in an uptrend already, and so now with the major spike up to 1.7, that is 0.3 million, like 25% increase in price over the course of 6 months, and probably a 20% increase in price in like a month or so with the announcement of the citadels. What I do like is that we actually saw a big response back, so there is potential production out there, which will hopefully keep the price from like doubling and tripling all of a sudden. But there could be individual ones that have a harder time doing this. Here, for instance, the Nano Factory, I find this pretty damn interesting. It is needed, right? I wrote them down here. Yeah, Nano Factories are needed. Started at 1.75, ends at 0.90, so that's not that big of an increase in price. And the really interesting thing here is that we actually see that on probably some speculation, it actually already knew a run up to 0.95, and then it actually settled back down to 0.75, and now we can also see that it's actually breaking 0.90 already on the chart for the 5-day moving average. So sellers are below 900,000 is already for the Nano Factory I think production may be trying to take advantage of these higher prices, which is quite okay. That means that if you take a little bit more time and try to time your purchase of these advanced planetary materials before the expansion, because there's a lot of people that don't even know about citadels just yet, and they will of course all of a sudden try and make a move on these planetary materials, but I think that there's a good buy opportunity to get them at a decent price. That's in the works at the moment. Here is the market organic mortar applicators. That one clearly went up from 750k to 900k. Again, it's a percentage jump, but it's not completely out of bounds in price either. It's not like the doubling in price that, for instance, we saw with Megasite and Zydrine when the mineral rebalance hit, for instance. Recursive computer model, that's really interesting, starting at 1.2, ending at 1.2, so not even a major impact on this one. You do see the spike at the announcement right here before 1st of November, but that's completely rebalanced. So recursive computer models, I think if you're planning to make citadels, you're not doing anything wrong by already purchasing the needed computing models here. Self-harmonizing power core, very similar situation, starting at 145, ending at 140, even lower than before. Again, you can see the price spike right here. It went as low as 1.3, spiked up to 1.6, so that's not bad, but all of them are normalizing quite nicely. Sterile conduits starting at 0.85 pretty much, ending at close to 0.90. I think that's really not that big of a deal. We see the small spike here at the announcement, but not really all that major. And then here we get the wetware mainframe, which started at 1.5 million and ends up at 1.7 million. Yeah, it's an increase in price, but I mean, there is going to be increased demand, so this is normal, and a lot of them we're actually seeing them normalize here at the tail end already. So this is pretty interesting in my book, because it's part of the preparations that I need to do as well if I want to go for a large citadel, which at the moment I'm really leaning towards trying to just straight go for a large one. I think it could be interesting. Especially now that it looks like I'm actually making some money on the mineral investments that I've made, and I don't need as much as I expected. So I'll be able to sell some of those minerals at a good profit, and then hopefully put that to work towards some BPCs and stuff like that. But yeah, there you go, guys. Also a little bit of a look at the advanced planetary materials for PI as well. These are related to the Citadel, so keep that in mind. Maybe as well for investments later on, if like me you believe that actually a big part of the player base doesn't know that much about Citadel constructions, then this could be a good investment as well. I have some decisions to make, honestly, seeing where Tritanium is now, seeing what happened to these PIs. Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I need to wrap my head around everything, and then I think you can still make some good moves in the market at the moment when it comes to the Citadel expansion. Anyways, that's going to be it for this Eve Talk. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.